I wanted to ask you, Ron, like if you were in the White House press briefing room right now, and there was a start of a press conference, and Karoline Leavitt called on you, I'm wondering, Ron, what you would ask her today if you had the opportunity.
There's one question that I've always wanted to ask Trump or a Trump surrogate about since 2023, and that is, well, there's two things. I would two big campaign promises that he made and talked about repeatedly on the campaign trail that no member of the media has ever asked him about, and it's been incredibly frustrating to me. Brett Baer is an example. He's followed me on Twitter for years. And I've tried to get him to, because he's interviewed Trump like 3 times. Yep. I tried to get him to ask these questions. So one would be, Trump promised to build 10 freedom cities, 10 new cities he was going to build. He promised this in a video, and they were not going to have any government regulations and all this kind of stuff. So I guess what's going on with the freedom cities? Like, where are they? Where are they going to be built? Who's going to build them? Who's going to get the when are we starting those freedom cities? That would be one question. And then second was, Trump promised repeatedly during the campaign that he was going to have every public school in America elect their school principal. The parents were going to vote, and they could elect each year, they could elect whoever they wanted as their school principal. So I would say, well, when are we doing that? And what in the Constitution gives the president the authority to force a local elementary school to have an election every year to elect principals? Who's eligible to run? Do you have to have a college degree? Do you have to live in the district? Or just can anybody run? Can we elect a plumber as a high school principal if that's who gets voted in? So what happened to those 2 major policy proposals? And when is Trump gonna roll these things out? That's what, because those were 2 of the most ridiculous, outrageous proposals that Kamala Harris never talked about, the media never talked about, and everybody's just kind of forgotten about them.
Very good point. And you also point out on a daily basis, for the most part, that Donald Trump did say he was getting the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. Yeah. And we had these strikes the other day. And then when Donald Trump is, because you're passionate about this as I am, Donald Trump the other day was asked about these strikes that killed innocent women and children in part. And Donald Trump's response, it was a mistake. It's a mistake, Ron, right? When you lock your car, your keys in your car. That wasn't a mistake. That was planned. And there's one person in this whole situation that doesn't want peace, and that's Vladimir Putin, which he never calls out. Right, Ron? Never calls him out.
Yeah, I mean, they bombed a church service on Palm Sunday when people were going to church. That's why the casualties were so high. And this was 2 days after Steve Witkoff went to church with Putin. Our U.S. envoy, Trump's U.S. envoy to Russia, attended a church service with Putin. Less than 48 hours later, he was bombing a church on Palm Sunday. Putin doesn't believe in God. He's not a Christian, but he plays this game for the West because he wants the West to believe he is a Christian when he has absolutely never been religious in any way. So yes, when he did that, Trump has not said a single word in condemnation of that attack. His answer to every single question about any atrocity that Putin does, any act of aggression, Putin has bombed over 1,000 schools, over 1,000 churches, hospitals. People don't realize this. He bombs civilian targets every single day. So when this happened, the Kremlin put out propaganda that said this was a targeting error, that they were trying to bomb a military target, but they mistakenly, bombed the civilian area, which is of course a lie, bullshit. But what does Trump do? Does Trump call this out? No, he accepts the lie. He accepts what the Kremlin said. Well, my understanding is this was just a mistake, is what our president said.
And then he blames Ukraine for the war.
If it's a mistake, why does Putin do it every single day for the last 3 years? He keeps making the same mistake. I mean, it's asinine. And so
then he blames Ukraine for the war again. He did it again.
He blames Biden. The point is that every question he gets asked, he always makes it about himself and Biden. And that's not what this is about. You promised to end the war in 24 hours. You said you had a secret plan to do it. He was asked about it 30 times during the campaign and interviews. He said he had a plan, but he couldn't tell anybody what it was because it was secret. But in one phone call, he said, I would make one phone call to Putin and this war would be over. So my question would be, Karoline, why didn't he make that phone call to Putin? And what was it that he was going to tell him that would end the war? And why won't he tell it to him now?
So, Ron, I think I know the way Karoline Leavitt would answer, which is ridiculous, but she would say the president has already been asked about this and he said he was being sarcastic. What would you say to that?
No, I watched all those interviews, man. He said it. I posted the clips.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with you.
He produced a video from his studio in Mar-a-Lago saying it. He said it in a dozen rally speeches. He said it in a dozen interviews. He said it on podcasts over and over and over again. There was no sarcasm. You can watch the clips. They're on my Twitter feed. I posted them hundreds of times. There's no humor there. There's no sarcasm. There's nothing. There is just Trump saying, I know how to end this, art of the deal. I'm smarter than anybody else. I know I'm quoting him exactly. I know exactly what to say to Putin. I know exactly what to say to Zelensky. I'll make one phone call to each one of them, and this will be over within 24 hours of taking office. And he said, it won't, this is a quote, it won't even be hard, and it might not even take me 24 hours. That's what he said dozens of times. Here we are 3 months later. The killing continues, and he has no idea how to end it.